Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm making this video of why I love / saying goodbye to the Webtoon, manhwa Webtoon series Girls of the Wilds. Really quickly, if you're unfamiliar with Girls of the Wilds, it is this action, martial arts, romance drama. Essentially, you follow like the main protagonist. His name is Jaegu. He is going into high school. Basically, Jaegu comes from a complicated circumstance. His dad died a couple years ago, and basically about 4 years prior to the start of the series, Jaegu's mom abandoned him and his two siblings because he's stuck raising his two elementary school, like super young twin siblings, his brother and sister, and he has to juggle working all these different jobs, plus he's kind of miserable because he gets bullied, and it's just like he got dealt a pretty rough hand in life. Well, I forgot the exact circumstances. I should know because I fairly recently read it, obviously, but it's been a couple months now at the time we recorded it. But essentially, he gets accepted into this very prestigious school called the Wilds, except it has a very unique circumstance. Two things. One, it is a predominantly female school. In fact, not predominantly, entirely female school. The only reason why Jaegu is going there now is because the school this very year has become a co-ed school, so he's the first male to attend the school. Like for majority of the series, in fact, you know, kind of spoilerish, but still. And so it's him kind of juggling all that. He has his own complicated feelings about women, which obviously that steers from stuff with his mom, her abandoning him. So like he has, I mean, to be fair, he's kind of closed himself off from a lot of people, but it's about him kind of, you know, also the other prominent thing about the Wilds is that it is a martial arts school. And so he's surrounded by all these characters. I mean, there's a pretty lengthy cast of characters that are main characters and recurring characters, but for the most part, the series mostly revolves around four key characters: Jaegu, Dao Dao, Mu Young, and Queen. Those are like our four main characters, and there's kind of a little bit of it's a love square to some extent, but you know, slightly spoiler, but pretty much it becomes like a love triangle later on in the series, and I'll kind of leave it at that. I'll talk about it maybe a little bit more later on, but yeah, it's about Jaegu like learning how to stand up for himself and kind of coming out of his shell and becoming a better person, and just kind of taking the cards that life dealt him and kind of making the best of it. He starts changing little by the group of friends he makes along the way. You know, especially with Queen, things start off complicated with Queen, but they start going down a very specific direction, obviously pretty early on. But it's a good series. It's plenty of awesome action. It's very grounded action. Yes, it's like, you know, it's a webtoon, so it's going to be heightened action, but it's nothing supernatural to it. It is just pure martial arts. Like, for example, like Dao Dao does taekwondo, Moon Young is a boxer, and Queen like does an amalgamation of things. She's very mixed martial arts, her style in particular. And you have different people, like I said, different martial arts style over the course of this series. But like I said, there's a cast of characters that you kind of get to follow, but those four are kind of like the main ones you follow. And it's just about, you know, them spending time together, and they're fun together, but also like the drama of like I said, Jaegu trying to stand up for himself and becoming a stronger person, confronting who he was in the past and finding his way forward in life. But you know, he has your typical cliche main protagonist thing of, oh, I don't realize girls around me like me. But when you look at his circumstances, understandable. He's closed himself off from people, so in his mind, he doesn't even think it's possible that people could like him. He doesn't even think about that stuff because he's so busy trying to like make ends meet just to look after his siblings. And it shows you like how much of a good person he can be. His struggles kind of contorted him into who he became, but he's a big brother doing everything he can to look after his siblings, and it's a really beautiful story. Like I said, it's very action packed, but it's all fun. There's like funny elements and funny characters and development, but obviously the romance angle has always been there throughout the entire series, but I feel like once you hit like this 60% mark, roughly speaking, for the entire series, that scope of, because it was always like a macro scale of like, yeah, it's there, it's pretty obvious, especially we have characters like Dao Dao. She made it very clear how she's felt about Jaegu from the beginning, but then like obviously Queen eventually obviously like starts having feelings for him, but it's like it's very macro, it's there, it's prevalent, but it's not till like the 60% mark, like I said, they start zooming in more and more, and you really lean into the romance and the complications of that romance and the drama circulating around it. Like none of the other elements, none of the martial arts and none of that ever disappears, but I'm just saying like the romance angle becomes an even bigger thing than it already was. It was pretty big, but it becomes even bigger storyline wise. And so It's a very sweet story, and I just finished it, like, because I'm reading like multiple things, because I just did my video talking about She's Hopeless, but I just finished this like last night / this morning. The series ran for like, what, 4 years? It ran from like 2011 to 2016, so obviously I'm getting to it super late because the series ended like 8 years ago. But funny enough, me reading it recently, because I started reading it maybe a month or two ago, probably a little bit longer, but in the grand scheme of things, I'd actually read part of the series years ago. In fact, when I was reading it years ago, it was still ongoing at the time, if I remember correctly. I probably got maybe like halfway through this story like years ago, because I think, yeah, I want to say I was around like chapter 120 something, maybe further. It's been so long, that's why I restarted it, because I just at the time I was so caught up at the time, like specifically I was almost fully caught up that I want to be, and I lost track of the series, and all these years later I finally circled back to it. And yeah, I'm really glad I finished it, because no spoilers, but I think it has a beautiful ending. Like I said, it's just the romance of it, like I said, becomes like a very like heartbreaking element. It's like I said, especially as you go further and further in the series, because there's complicated things where like Jaegu, you feel you're so frustrated towards him, not just in a cliche manner, but even the later parts when it comes to romance stuff, you feel frustrated towards the way he handles it, but at the same time with everything he's been through and the way he goes about it, like, it can be frustrating, but you also understand where he's coming from. So it's just an interesting dynamic you experience as a reader of the series, and I think that's what makes it so fascinating. I did talk about this earlier. The series, I guess, technically can be labeled as a harem, which is interesting, but it doesn't have the full hallmarks of a harem because of the nature of, hey, he's going to a school mainly with females, and most of the cast is female versus male characters. Like, I'd say the percentage is probably anywhere between like 60-40 or 70-30. I might be underestimating. It might be even more skewed than that, because because there are male characters that become pretty recurring. But yeah, it's like I said, but mainly the series includes like Dao Dao, Mu Young, and Queen. They're the main ones, and so that's where you kind of get a little bit of the harem. But then once again, in my head, I don't think about like, oh, you're just surrounded by women. That might just be the definition of harem, but in my head, and I always feel like it has to be like everyone around the main character has to like him for it to be fully a harem, which is obviously kind of a complicated thing for Jaegu, because even though there's characters you don't get to like really personally know who just like Jaegu because he's the only boy at the school. So it's that angle to it. So that's where the harem of it comes from. But like when it comes to the ladies that are more personally in his life, it's only those three. So like I said, it's kind of a love square, but it really just comes down to a love triangle. So that's where it becomes like less haremish and just kind of a complicated love story in its own right. But I think it is a journey well worth taking. Like I said, the series just has everything, and so it's a really great series. I highly recommend you check out. It's decently long. It's 260 chapters, but I think it's really 258 because I think 2 of those chapters are like special things. So but just pure story, I want to say it's like 258. Something I didn't know, because I knew that the series never got an anime adaptation, which is sad, but I just found out today at the time of recording this. I never knew this. Apparently back in 2018, there was a Chinese live-action adaptation of Girls of the Wilds. It's like 37 episodes, and I thought that was so wild, and I'm like, holy crap, if I can, I want to track that down just so I can watch in comparison, especially now that I just finished the series and it's fresh in my mind. I love to compare and contrast, because I read a little synopsis, because the live-action Chinese series, it's not called Girls of the Wilds, it's called Sweet Combat, and the little premise I read seemed in line with what the manhwa webtoon is, but I'm curious to, like I said, see what they change, because adaptations are really going to be one-to-one. Like I said, I'd love to track it down if I'm able to find it and watch it just to compare and contrast, because that's so interesting. I'm so glad I stumbled across that information today. That's kind of something exciting for the future to try and track down and see. But like I said, it's a well-worked story all around, and I think it has a beautiful ending. Like I was just talking about with She's Hopeless, I wish I had one more chapter, because I would love a time skip to see where everyone ended up, but because you don't catch up with every character, you follow where some characters end up, but it's still a beautiful, satisfying ending. But also, like what I said with She's Hopeless, even if I got one more chapter, all I would have wanted was to have more regardless. So it's it having a proper ending. I never want anything to end, so I would always want more and more and more and more, especially these characters. So it's kind of sad. I'm getting to it like obviously super late, but being able to say goodbye to these characters and this story, very much like she's hopeless. It's staying in my chest, and I'm still just kind of smiling and just kind of have this feeling in my chest. I'm like, oh, I want more. Like I said, I just don't want anything to end, and it's sad saying goodbye to these characters I've been following and reading for this little bit. So especially considering I circled back to this series like I brought up earlier. So like I said, I highly recommend you check this series out if you've never checked it out. It is well worth. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.